Matthew Evans, a man in his late 70s, had spent a lifetime forging his empire in finance, building wealth that most could only dream of. Yet, on that hot Kentucky afternoon, none of it mattered. He was sitting in his sleek silver Mercedes, the air conditioner struggling to fight the oppressive heat. His thumb tapped impatiently on the steering wheel as he stared at the stretch of empty road ahead. A flat tire had left him stranded, miles away from the comforts of his sprawling mansion. The roadside assistance service was proving unreliable. Repeated calls yielded no results. Resigning himself to the situation, Matthew leaned back in his seat, his frustration simmering just beneath the surface. But then, in the shimmering heat haze, he noticed a figure walking toward him. It was a boy, no older than 13 or 14, dressed in a faded t-shirt and scuffed sneakers. His confident stride contrasted sharply with his worn attire. As he approached, his gaze swept over the car before meeting Matthew's with a polite yet assured expression. "Got a flat, sir?" the boy asked, his voice steady and clear. "Yes," Matthew replied, a mixture of relief and embarrassment coloring his tone. "I could use some help, but it seems I'm out of luck with phone service." The boy offered a small smile. "I can fix it. My grandpa taught me last summer." Matthew nodded, gesturing toward the trunk. The boy retrieved the spare tire and tools without hesitation. As the boy worked, his movements were fluid, his hands steady, skill and focus beyond his years. Matthew, standing nearby, felt an unfamiliar humility take root. He wasn't used to needing help, much less from a child. When the task was done, the boy wiped his hands on his jeans and stood up, offering a satisfied smile. All set. Matthew reached into his wallet, pulling out a few crisp bills. "Here, take this. You've been a lifesaver." But the boy shook his head, taking a step back. "Thank you, sir, but I don't need anything. I'm just happy to help." Matthew stood there, stunned. In his world, every action came with a price. The boy's refusal left him disarmed, humbled by a generosity so rare it felt almost foreign. He watched as the boy walked away, the image of his retreating figure lingering long after he'd disappeared down the road. That evening, in the grand silence of his mansion, Matthew found himself haunted by the encounter. The boy's quiet dignity stirred something long dormant in him. For years, Matthew had measured life by transactions, profits and losses, costs and benefits. Yet this boy had given freely, without expectation. The next morning, an impulse drove Matthew to return to the stretch of road where they'd met. He didn't know why. Curiosity, gratitude, or perhaps an unshakable need to understand. Hours passed as he asked around at gas stations and diners, describing the boy to anyone who'd listen. Finally, an elderly woman behind the counter of a small cafe recognized his description. "Sounds like Elijah," she said with a knowing smile. "Good boy, always helping folks. Lives with his mama over in Harlan." Matthew's heart quickened. Harlan was an hour's drive, nestled in the Appalachian foothills. He set off immediately, the scenic route blurring as his mind raced with questions. Harlan was a quiet town, its streets lined with modest homes and small businesses. Guided by the locals, Matthew soon found himself in front of a humble house on the edge of town. The porch sagged slightly, the paint weathered by years of sun and rain. Taking a deep breath, he knocked on the door. A woman in her early 40s answered, her eyes kind but wary. "Can I help you?" "Good morning," Matthew began, clearing his throat. "I believe I met your son yesterday, Elijah, right? He helped me with a flat tire." Her expression softened. "That sounds like him," she said with a proud smile. "He's always looking out for people. I just wanted to thank him properly. Matthew continued. He wouldn't take anything from me yesterday. She stepped aside, inviting him in. He's out back. You're welcome to wait. Inside, the house was modest but immaculate. The furniture, though old, was well cared for, and the walls were adorned with family photos and a few hand-drawn pictures, evidence of a younger Elijah's creativity. It was a far cry from Matthew's sterile mansion, yet it radiated warmth. In the backyard, Elijah was repairing a fence, his focus unwavering. He looked up, surprised to see Matthew. "Hey, mister," he said with a grin. "What are you doing here?" "I came to thank you properly," Matthew replied, feeling strangely nervous under the boy's steady gaze. "It wasn't a big deal," Elijah said, shrugging. But to Matthew, it was. As they talked, Matthew learned about Elijah's life, his love for tinkering, his dreams of becoming an engineer, and the challenges his family faced. The boy's optimism and resilience struck a chord in Matthew, reminding him of his own humble beginnings. "I'd like to do something for you and your family," Matthew said at last. Elijah hesitated, his expression cautious. "We're doing okay, mister. We don't need much." "It's not about need," Matthew insisted. "It's about what's right." Over the next week, Matthew arranged for contractors to renovate the house. The porch was replaced, the roof repaired, and the interior given a fresh coat of paint. Elijah and his mother watched in astonishment as their home was transformed. "You didn't have to do this," Elijah's mother said, her voice trembling. "You gave me something I didn't know I needed," Matthew replied. "Let me give back." Elijah, initially wary of the changes, soon grew excited. He watched the workers with keen interest, asking questions and even lending a hand where he could. One of the workers, a burly man named Joe, noticed Elijah's curiosity and took him under his wing, teaching him the basics of construction. The boy's enthusiasm was infectious, reigniting a spark in Matthew that had long been extinguished. As the weeks passed, the project became more than just a renovation. It became a collaboration, a symbol of community and hope. Neighbors stopped by to lend a hand or share a meal, their laughter filling the yard. On the final day, as Matthew stood on the new porch, he felt a profound sense of fulfillment. Elijah's mother approached, her eyes shining with gratitude. "This isn't just a house anymore," she said. "It's a home." Elijah joined them, his gaze thoughtful. "Mr. Matthew," he said, "I've been thinking a lot about what you did for us. I want to do something like that one day. Help people the way you helped us." Matthew placed a hand on the boy's shoulder, his voice steady. "You already have, Elijah. Your kindness set all of this in motion. Don't ever lose that." For Matthew, the experience was transformative. He realized that his wealth and success meant little without purpose, without connection. Elijah and his family had given him a gift far greater than he could ever repay, a reminder of what truly mattered. In the months that followed, Matthew continued to visit Harlan, becoming a part of the community. He supported Elijah's budding interest in engineering, arranging for him to shadow professionals and learn the skills he'd need to pursue his dreams. For the first time in years, Matthew felt alive, not because of what he had gained, but because of what he had given. Elijah's selflessness had sparked a change in him, leading him down a path of connection, gratitude, and meaning. And so, in a small town with a big heart, an old man and a young boy forged a bond that transcended wealth and status, reminding them both that life's greatest riches are found not in what you have, but in what you give.